Hey Nick, I'll try to just break it down um, real simply. Basically, we're trying to come up with a theory for consciousness, not only where it came from, but presumably what it is. We would need to know what it is before we can then try to figure out where it came from, how it evolved. In other words, um, so when we ask what it is, what is the answer to that question? Is consciousness nothing but representations? Um, is consciousness this really complex arrangement of perceptual uh, symbols or ideas, that the mind picks up from the visual cortex, which picks it up from the world? Is that all consciousness is? Complex interrelationships between representations? Um, well, first, what is consciousness? Consciousness is our experience of reality. Sometimes we only experience ourselves, as in dreams or psychotic breaks, or you could say that everything we encounter in the world is really a reflection in some way of our own neuro physiology. Um, so consciousness is what we experience. We can say it is our experience of reality, but it's not only that, whatever we may mean by reality. Um, well, if we mean reality as something separate from us, sometimes we experience that, um, or the appearance of that, the phenomenon of that. We can't be sure what it is that we're experiencing because it arises first as experience, not as an objective world, but as experience. Um, so now, is this compatible with the idea that consciousness is representational? Well, what do we mean? What do cognitive scientists mean by representations when they talk about the brain performing these functions in order to get the body around the world? Well, for them, a representation is some type of formal structure. In other words, all that matters about it is its shape and the way it interacts with the other formal structures within which it is in a relationship. Um, it doesn't matter what the symbol means, what its content is, how it is experienced or embodied by an actual biological organism. All that matters is its shape and how it relates to other shapes, other representations. Um, and you've certainly given a fine explanation for how this representational process would work. Now, the question is, has that explained consciousness, which again is not has nothing to do with the shapes of the symbols that our brain uses to, in a sense, map or represent the world. It has to do with the experience of the symbols, the experience meaning of the symbols. Um, I don't think the representational approach gives us an explanation for where the experience comes from. Um, as I was trying to say in my comments, if it's true that consciousness is just an epiphenomenon, or in other words, there is no free will, there is just the illusion of being a body, which has no ability to control or influence what the body does, what the material machine does. It's just sort of floating on top of it. Um, if that's true, why would it ever evolve? If it has no causal role to play, if it doesn't increase our fitness in any way by creating a top-down type of causality whereby the consciousness can interact in the world autonomously, with the world autonomously. If that isn't what consciousness is about, then it never would have evolved because there's no survival value associated with it. It's completely extra. It's waste. Um, we could say it's just a total fluke accident that it evolved, but that to me is just such an extreme assumption to make when there are other um, hypotheses or other axioms or assumptions we could make that are less, uh, I don't know, alienating, alienating us from each other in the sense that we're somehow encapsulated as this accidental emergent property of neurons that got a little too complex for their own good. But it alienates us from nature as well, because it's somehow in here is where all the meaning is, where all the purpose is, and it doesn't even get to play out in the body. The mind, my awareness, doesn't have anything to do with what I do as a body, as a material object. That just doesn't make sense to me. It's incoherent. So the problem is with the representational idea. It is supposed to explain consciousness, but it doesn't do that at all. It completely ignores consciousness, which is fine if that's what we are setting out to do. But if we want to understand consciousness, awareness, experience, we can't do it this way. That was my point, basically.